I would now like to introduce our main speaker of the night, Captain Larry Scallon from James Stevens Barracks, Kilkenny. Captain Scallon has been a leading light in the mission to inform and educate us all here in County Kilkenny about our military history. He has done this in many ways as curator of James Stevens Military Barracks Museum, and also he has given many lectures, walking tours, and written extensively on many and varied aspects of our complex military history and conflicts. He is a massive public speaker and is always a pleasure to listen to whenever he holds a tour or a talk. He's a transport officer at Kilkenny Military Barracks and a Wexford man, engrossed in Ireland's fight for freedom. And it is a complete passion with him. He says anyone that wants to see the museum, he'd only ask for him at the barrack gate, and he'd show the people around the museum there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll give you Captain Larry Scallon.
Donald, thanks very much, and everybody, it's a great privilege to be here this evening. I always stand back when Donald gives his introduction because there's no way I can ever live up to that sort of words. I am a Wexford man, proud to be, and hopefully the first time in 20 years I can cheer on Sunday when we beat the You won't hold that against me. I've a strong tradition. My kids are all mad Kilkenny folk, so what can I say? So, from Bugle Call to Tolling Bell, where did the name come from? Well, it is actually a fact that we send our loved ones who've died to their eternal reward very well in Ireland. It has historically been how we celebrate their lives by their wakes. We bury them with dignity. We are very emotionally attached as a community, not necessarily to our own family, but to our friends, neighbours, and maybe even only distant acquaintances. Will go out of our way, even today, to attend their funerals. At the start of the 20th century, it was the bedrock of Irish life was our belief and our reaction to what was often quite a rough life because we hadn't money, we hadn't lots of things, but what we had was community, and what we really had was the love of our next of kin. So the Bugle Call happened in 1914. We were called to arms, and the tolling bell is the passing bell that sounds as we carry our loved one's coffin out of the church to the cemetery. A whole generation of Kilkenny people and Irish people didn't have that. Their husbands left them as healthy people, and their sons and their daughters as nurses. And they never came back. What's worse, lots of them never had a headstone because there was no part of their body found. So we blow the bugle to commemorate my colleagues who died even today. It's a big part of it. The bugle call back at the start of the 20th century was your signals. That's how you called people. Your breakfast was a bugle call, your dinner was a bugle call, go to bed was a bugle call, lights out was a bugle call. But the symbology of the bugle call was that, that's what happened in August 1914, right through to 1918. And the tolling bell was the missing part. And that missing part was missing for eternity for those people, because they went to their own graves without ever having the money to go to France or Flanders to visit anywhere, for them to, there's a lot of sense of, it's final when you can see a headstone of your husband or son or daughter or loved one. When you haven't got, when that's missing out of your life, well, there's something big missing. And that's the essence of the story that I'm going to tell tonight. It's not about the war fighting. You know what? The men fought, they died, and they're gone. What was left was a hole in their mother's heart at home. What was left was the embers, the dying embers of a memory in their sister or husband or wife. That was left forever. Because in the New Ireland, we couldn't talk about that. It wasn't a part of our new history. That was left behind us. So tonight's focus is on the 12 parishes. This is a map which dates around 1900, shows the parishes, and these are the parishes I'm going to talk about. You'll recognise the parishes as we're going along, right? And for a statistical analysis, it was very good because I got a good chunk of information based on the soldiers and nurses and chaplains and so on and so forth that are associated with these 12 parishes, and we'll delve into that a little bit as I'm going along. So the research methodology was that anybody associated with the south of Kilkenny, as in those parishes, is included tonight. So this is the, I went on my first trip overseas in 1988, and technology was nothing then. So your only communication was a letter home. That's the same type of letter home they had. I had photographs with me, the guys didn't, but what they had in their minds was an embedded memory of their home. So this is the creamery in Kilmacow. So I'm sure there's loads of guys from the Kilmacow area. When they were cold and dirty and damp in the bottom of a trench, they weren't thinking, now this is where I am. Do you know where they were? They were here. They were here. Or if you were from Windgap, you were here. Or if you were from Stonyford, I think, you were here. Or if you were from Temple Oram, you were here, packing the eggs. You weren't in the trench. You were nowhere, because you couldn't live in the moment because it was unbearable. This is what they did. This is how they coped. And I can tell you that because in some little way I experienced very similar myself. So here's a close-up of the picture in Kilmacow. I have no idea who anybody here is, but I can tell you the picture was taken around 1900. How many of these guys were in a trench somewhere in 1916 or 17 or 1918? And when they closed their eyes in the cold, miserable dirt that they were living in, were they thinking about what it was like to be from Kilmacow? That's where we are, and that's where we have to think about this, because they didn't really ask for what they got. Because this is important. History is not the same as memory. We can now, with the passage of time, look at recovering our World War I experiences by changing the focus and putting glasses on for the first time, and now at last we can engage with compassion our long forgotten World War I soldiers, nurses, doctors, priests, so on. But more importantly, the loved ones left behind. The soldiers came, they went, they died. The people left at home were left with a hole in their hearts that could never be filled. And, we didn't talk about it. There's people here tonight probably didn't know until 10 years ago they had ancestors that died in the Great War. But it wasn't always like that, because here is the 11th of November 1918. This is Dublin. Here we have 500,000 people celebrating the end of World War I. This is 1919, 1 year later. The whole of Dublin City again parading and celebrating the end of this first anniversary of the end of the Great War. Okay, Lord French did use it slightly in order to say this is still the British Empire. Do you know? That was a feeling going around. But you can see the masses of people that are still out here. Here's 1923 with the, if you look, you won't be able to see it, but if you look in around here, there's a Celtic cross. Well, that Celtic cross exists today out in near Mazine Ridge. That very cross, 1923, a full 5 years after the end of the war, there's still 30,000 people on Grafton Street for the inauguration of that cross, which was going across. So what happened? Like, we didn't just drop off our consciousness altogether, right? It didn't just happen overnight, because we were engaging with our memory up until the middle of the 1920s. But to set the scene, so as we can understand a little bit about how it all came about, here we see Princess Victoria, Queen Victoria, the famous Queen of England. Her daughter was sent over to Germany to marry Prince Frederick. Their son, Prince William. Prince William would go on to become Kaiser William II. Queen Victoria's grandson. Here we see the Tsar, the Kaiser, and the King of England, all cousins. They all look like they're brothers, not only cousins. Right? They're the very same as each other. These were the guys that caused World War I. Why? Greed, why globalisation, the want of more land, power, money, monopolies, you name it. But here these three cousins could have stopped all that, but because of their national agendas, they didn't, and they allowed it to happen. And here's what happened. This fella here, Gravillo Príncipe, on the 28th of June 1914, shoots dead Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophie Chopek in Sarajevo. And it was those bullets occasioned the start of the Great War. They didn't cause the Great War, but they certainly helped it. And then on the 4th of August 1914, the bugle call went, and the guys who were already soldiers were just sent. Redmond made his famous speech in Wooden Bridge around the end of August and September, calling for the support of the Irish men and women to engage with the Great War on the side of Britain in order to advance the purpose of home rule. And but lots of guys, that's wrong. You can't impose Redmond's call on being the entire reason that every Irish man, Kilkenny man, joined to fight for Great War. Lots of them did it for personal reasons. Some of them did it to be with their buddies. Do you know what? Some of them did it because they were loyal British citizens living in Ireland. You can't get away from that fact. Lots of guys joined up for education purposes, because you could get educated in the army and end up with a first-class cert and be eligible to be commissioned from the ranks, which lots of Kilkenny did happen a lot of the time. So you started off as a private, got your education through the army, and ended up as an officer. Some lads would say the brain is half when you're an officer, but I'm not going there. The British Army in 1914, because I am an officer, so I have a full brain. The British Army in 1914 had a total number of soldiers in all regiments who were Irish were between 42 and 45,000 men already. These didn't answer Redmond's call. These were soldiers. These were already in the army. There were full-time professional soldiers and lots of reservists. If you were in the local militia, you would get an extra shilling a week just for being in the militia. You only went on camp for 1 month a year and you got an additional salary then, but the extra shilling a week was a lot of money back in the day. So they were already in. They were gone, right? The total figures, as Donald already told you earlier on, 3,129 men and women that we have recorded to date. There are more, undoubtedly there are more. And the figure we're concentrating on tonight are the 392 South Kilkenny men and women. They're the concentrated effort. So every statistic you see after this is relating to the 392. So where did these guys enlist from? Well, as you would expect, half of the men from South Kilkenny were enlisted in the Royal Irish Regiment, because that's the local regiment. The Royal Irish Regiment was formed in 1684. It was the local regiment territorialised in the south of Ireland and recruited from Kilkenny, Waterford, Tipperary and Wexford. Kilkenny was the main area for the 4th Special Reserve Battalion, the militia battalion associated with now James Stephens Barracks. So 50% of the soldiers who fought from South Kilkenny were Royal Irish Regiment soldiers. Interestingly, about 20% of the South Kilkenny men were naval service. There's a strong naval tradition, mercantile navy and navy. And another aspect that I picked up on during my research, almost 15% of the Kilkennys, so South Kilkenny soldiers, enlisted in Wales. They had already emigrated to Wales. I believe there's probably a strong tradition between now people will know this, local historians or anybody will know better than me, that the local port, Waterford, New Ross, and the ports over in Wales, there was a lot of traffic at that time, and lots of guys had emigrated and joined the war effort while in Wales.